Okay, so this is Wording Guide by Dogfullofacid. And here's some general information about wording. The first one is the more the merrier. So you always want to have words when you can buy them, when they are not cooldown. And never ward when the opponent sees you do so, because it's so easy to deward it, and then you will be out of vision. You won't have any vision where you want it to be. And don't deward randomly without any purpose. And by this I mean that don't just randomly place a sentry ward to some place if you don't know there is the opponent observer ward, or if you are not going for some objective. Like if you go for Roshan, you might want to check if the opponents have wards or stuff like that, but don't just deward randomly without purpose. So, the start of the game, you will buy 2 wards, give 1 ward for the offlaner, and 1 you keep for yourself most of the time. And warding the rune spot is your first priority. But which rune spot? So here I have a small idea. Usually, you see when you play Radiant, you see this kind of ward quite often nearby the river, securing your bottom rune. Or when you play Dire, you have this ward, or more close to your jungle on the cliff, securing the top rune. So these are quite common rune spots, right? But actually, I think that me included, people who place these wards are a bit idiots. And here is the reason why, because when you think of rotations, when you think of early game, who make the most rotations towards mid lane, for example, or who is in danger? It's the mid laner. Mid laner will be ganked, right? And mid laner will be ganked by safe lane support or supports, most cases. So actually, I believe that these wards should be the opposite, so that when you play Dire, you should be warding actually the bottom rune. When you play Radiant, you should be warding the top rune, because that saves your mid laner. And also, you will anyway know what your safe lane rune is, because your supports will check it, so you don't necessarily need the ward for that. So therefore, I feel like many people do this in a stupid way. So do I, because I always forget it in the beginning of the game. I don't know why. Maybe now that I have done this guide, I will remember start doing. But this is just something for you to think of, where the first rune ward should be. Alright, the third and fourth ward. These are usually I do the same thing with these wards. It's a lane ward for carry and mid ward. Those are just the ward places I use, because you want to secure your safe laner's farm, and by putting lane ward, it will help you help him to see all coming ganks. And the same thing for mid lane. Usually if mid laner snowballs out of control, you will win the game easily, and if your mid lane gets stumped, you will lose. So you want to secure their farm. So for example, here you see a really effective mid ward. And why I place it here on my side of the river is that usually if you put it to the other side, it's going to be more easily counter-warded. It's going to be dewarded. And it's quite easy for the opponents to see where the ward when you place the ward. So that's why it's most commonly when you go to gank mid lane, you place the lane ward here, a high ground ward, and then you proceed with the gank. Here is on Radiant side, here is the lane ward which I use when I want to secure carry's farm. And usually I try to place it like always, like I said, always place the wards so that your opponent doesn't see you doing it. Oops, let's click. So wards for the mid game. This is when it gets a bit different, like what you want to do. It's always situational. You have to think about the bigger picture. So you'll do evaluation of the power balance. It's a nice way to say that you wanna you, you have to know if you are winning or losing. And how can you know it? Well, you might check the kills and deaths, but also you have to evaluate who will win in the late game. Like if you are winning, but you know that you win the late game, you might want to ward a bit differently. Or if you're losing, just I lost my thought. But like if your opponent has a hero like Medusa or Spectre, some hero that is very dangerous in the later stages of the game, even if you are winning, you might just want to gank them, or even when you're losing, you might want to risk it and gank them. You have to know if you will win in the late game or lose in the late game, and decide what kind of wards you will do. And also, if like always, if it's equal, if you feel like you have equal chances, then if you are winning, you might want to place aggressive wards, and if you're losing, you might want to secure farm. Let's see. Leading or pressure to make moves. This is what I explained the last slide. Aggressive warding and usually enemy jungle. Here you see, this is... Oh, I forgot to say one thing, by the way. Predictability. Don't be predictable. Usually, most predictable ward places are those on the cliffs, on the little marks, the white marks that are on the ground. Those extremely like high ground wards. Those are the most predictable. So here is one typical ward I use when I play Radiant, or this white little area is another one. Those show quite a bit of the enemy jungle, and you can easily rotate gank there. Those are a bit less predictable than those on the ground. Also on Radiant side, you can see the minimap. Those are 3 different locations, of which the left side and the right side I use most, and the middle is kind of if your opponents deward a lot, then you want to change a bit. And of course you can change around these ward places like a few inches to some direction, so that if you feel like you're getting dewarded, or closer to the hard camp or stuff like that. Warding when you are behind or can secure late game. You do passive warding, save your jungle so that your carries can farm. Here's one example of Dire. So now there is the whole Dire jungle warded, so that if the enemy enters there without smoke, they will be spotted. Usually, especially if there is tier 1 tower still standing on the Radiant side, you definitely want that kind of lane ward to see if they gank from there with TP. This is just in general, save your side of the river. Also there is one on Dire Ancients, nearby those, so you see ganks from that place as well. But your carries farm will most likely be focused on mid lane, a jungle, and safe lane. So those are the most important places to secure. Then we have the last kind of last thing here. What are these called? I don't know. I'm losing all the words. Objective-based warding. So words that are not necessarily related to power balance. So that means that they are either Roshan or pushing towers or base. Sometimes, even when you are losing, you will be able to push towers. So you might want certain kinds of wards, where you try to sneak Rosh or whatever. And I have many pictures about these objective-based wardings. I'll try to explain a bit of those. Here's a reminder. Remember that creeps mustn't see you place this ward. It applies to every ward. I can't enough emphasis on that. But this is a ward when you try to push Dire tier 1. You place ward from here, from the jungle where the anti-mage is standing, and you will see TP rotations, or somebody who TPs to the tier 2. You will be able to evaluate how your fight will go. If you push... Oh, what happened with this picture? I don't know, sorry. But if you push top tier 2 on Dire side, this is a kind of nice ward if you're able to put it without vision. Sometimes in these situations I do place a ward on the cliff, because it doesn't really matter if it's dewarded if it just shows enough time so that we get that tower secured. This is a bit more rare ward, like when you push mid lane. I quite rarely use this, but I have seen it used, and I have used it a few times. You place a ward between two towers. So it's for the same reason as in the top lane. And here, this is what I quite often use. Ward here, you can plant it from behind the trees, and you see what happens behind the enemy tier 2. Same old stuff, but now we are in the bottom lane, pushing tier 2, and this, what combines many of these wards is that you can place them out of towers vision. You won't show yourself to tower nor creeps, because you can place those wards behind the tree, and that's quite important. And here, this is Roshan warding. When you are radiant and you want to take Roshan, you might also want to combine some sentry wards in this mission so that you see if enemies have vision or not. But this high cliff ward, and then ward nearby the radiant, nearby the dire secret shop. And now we proceed to dire side. When you play dire, I'm just showing this so that nobody gets confused about the places. I'm just showing these ward places also. Behind the trees, the lane, when you're pushing bottom tier 1 on Radiant. Here, when you're... oh, there's some mix up with the order of this. Here you're pushing top tier 2 on Radiant side. This is... I really like this ward. I think it even shows a bit to the high ground in the base, so it's a really effective ward. And here is the mid lane ward, which this is something also that I don't use that often, but I think I could use more often. Like it's really helpful to see what's happening behind the tower, and you can place this hidden as well. And this is one of my favorite wards when you're pushing mid tier 2. It just gives so much vision, and I like it also because it gives some vision to the hard camp. Gives you so much information actually, and it's not as easily rewarded as the high ground ward close to the hard camp. Yeah, when you're radiant, when you're dire and you take Roshan, usually one ward is enough, and usually combined with sentry. This ward here shows enough, because most of the time the opponents will be coming from this ramp and smoked, so that's a bit a nasty thing, but still it gives you vision. And usually one hero is outside the rush pit, so he can reveal the smoke earlier. And again, these little wards for pushing, again, easy to place from the woods, shows you stuff what is happening behind the tower. It's very helpful. And when you push to base, there's 2 ward places. I usually place them, even though they get dewarded quite fast, but when they don't, they are so helpful that you shouldn't ignore these wards. They are like both sides of the mid lane. They are extremely good. Hey, here it was actually faster than I thought. But this was the warding guide. So if you have any questions now, I'm happy to answer. We're gonna leave, I'm gonna give it a few minutes for you to answer, ask the question.